Right now, you are likely sitting in the quiet of your room, feeling that hollow ache that comes from giving so much of yourself away. You have spent your day, perhaps your entire life, acting as a structure for other people to walk upon. You have been the support, the listener, and the one who holds everything together. And yet, in the stillness of this hour, you feel completely invisible. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes with being a bridge. You are built to carry the weight of others, to remain steady while they pass over you, and to never once ask for their gratitude. But tonight, the weight of those footsteps feels heavier than usual. Your stones are aching from the constant friction, and you wonder if anyone even knows that you are here at all. Listen to the sound of the world outside your window. The air is heavy with the scent of damp earth and the distant, rhythmic hum of a river moving through the dark. You are in a space that asks nothing of you. The lamp beside you is dimmed to a low amber glow, casting long shadows that flicker like ghosts of the day's work. There is no audience here. There are no travelers needing to cross. There is only the cool, solid feeling of the ground beneath you and the slow, deliberate movement of your own lungs. You are not required to be a support for anyone else in this room. You are not required to hold up a world that is not your own. Maybe you came here because you feel like your value is tied entirely to how useful you can be. If you are not serving, if you are not solving, if you are not providing a path for someone else, you feel as though you might simply vanish into the mist. You have built your identity around the idea that you are a structure meant for transit, but even a bridge needs a foundation that does not move. You are not broken because you are tired of being walked upon. You are not failing because you can no longer carry the heavy burdens of those who pass you by. It is a strange and frightening paradox, but the very service you think defines your worth is the same thing that keeps you from finding your own peace. We often believe that if we provide enough, if we prove our usefulness enough, we will finally be seen and cherished. We imagine that if we become the perfect bridge, someone will eventually stop in the middle of the span to thank us, to see us, and to ask how we are doing. But the nature of a bridge is to be overlooked. The travelers are too focused on their destination to notice the strength of the stones beneath their feet. This is not a slight against you. It is simply the way of the river. The Buddhist way of seeing does not ask you to stop being a support for others. It does not teach you to become selfish or cold. Instead, it invites you to look at the intention behind your labor. When you serve from a place of deep, silent dignity, you are not dependent on the appreciation of the travelers. You are not waiting for them to notice your strength. You are content because you know your own nature. You know that you are a pillar, and you understand that your strength is not a gift you give to others, but a quality that belongs entirely to you. When you try to earn your worth through the approval of the people crossing your path, you are effectively giving your power away to every stranger who walks over you. You are carrying a deep hunger to be acknowledged, and this hunger is what makes the weight of the day feel so crushing. You are waiting for someone to stop, to look down, and to recognize that you are a living being with a heart that needs rest. But this recognition will never fill the hollow space inside you, because it is external, fleeting, and outside of your control. The peace you are reaching for is not something someone else can hand you at the end of their journey. It is already present in the stillness of your own foundation. Tonight, we are going to explore what it means to stop looking for your reflection in the eyes of the travelers. We are We are going to learn how to inhabit your own life rather than merely providing a path for others to traverse. This does not mean you will stop caring. It does not mean you will abandon the people who rely on you. It means you will learn to stand as a bridge because it is your nature to be strong, and not because you are begging for the applause of those who pass by. If it feels right, take a slow breath. Let the air move through your body. And as you exhale, imagine the tension of the day leaving your limbs. You do not need to solve your exhaustion tonight. You do not need to figure out how to balance your desire, to help with your need for solitude. All of that can wait for the clarity of the morning. Right now, there is only the invitation to be present with yourself, without the pressure to perform or the fear of being forgotten. There is a profound beauty in the bridge that stands in the middle of the dark, supporting nothing, asking for nothing and yet remaining entirely itself. That is the state we are reaching for. It is a state of quiet, autonomous existence, where your worth is not a transaction, but a truth that needs no proof. You are allowed to be empty of demands. You are allowed to be a space where the river flows beneath you, without you needing to catch its water or hold it back. As you lie here, feel the surface beneath you. Imagine it is the solid, weathered stone of an ancient crossing, deep in the gorge of a quiet valley. The water is rushing far below, loud and energetic, but the stone is ancient, patient, and unmoved. It has seen countless seasons, and it has carried thousands of lives, yet it remains the same. You have this same stone within you. You have a core of patience that has not yet been touched by the frantic pace of your daily life. There is no need to rush into the stories that follow. They will be here when you are ready. For these next few minutes, just let your awareness rest on the sensation of your own existence. If thoughts of tomorrow arrive, treat them like distant voices echoing from the other side of the gorge. They are simply travelers moving toward their own destinations. They do not have to stop on your span. They do not have to occupy your attention. You can let them pass. You can watch them go and then return to the silent, steady sensation of being here. In the dark, held by the weight of your own being. Nothing is required of you now. You do not need to prove your kindness by staying awake. You do not need to justify your rest by recounting your service. The work you have done is finished. The travelers have moved on. The river will continue to flow, and the bridge will continue to stand. But for this moment, you are simply the stone beneath the stars. You are the stillness that allows the movement to happen. You are the quiet strength that has nothing left to prove. In a remote province, long ago, there lived a mason named KL. He was known for a particular talent. When he laid stone upon stone, the result was a bridge so perfectly balanced that the rushing currents of the glacial rivers below seemed to bow in respect. KL took immense pride in his craft. He walked with heavy, calloused hands, his skin stained by the grey dust of granite and basalt. He believed that his purpose was to provide a passage for the villagers, the traders, and the travellers who moved from one bank of the gorge to the other. Every morning, before the sun had fully cleared the jagged peaks of the mountains, Kale would arrive at the edge of the gorge. He carried a heavy iron chisel, an old tool handed down to him by his father. Its edge was worn, polished to a mirror-like shine by years of striking stone. He spent his days inspecting the span he had built. He would climb beneath the arches to check for the slightest hairline fracture. If he found even a tiny fissure, he would spend hours meticulously carving and fitting a new sliver of stone to mend it. He was a man who lived entirely for the crossing of others. When a merchant crossed his bridge, Cale would watch from the shadows of the bank. He waited for a glance of recognition, perhaps a nod of thanks for the stability he provided. But the merchants were usually tired, their eyes fixed on the path ahead, their minds occupied with the goods they carried. They crossed, they vanished into the mist, and Cale remained. He felt a growing, hollow resentment, though he told himself it was simply pride in his work. Why did no one look down to see who had ensured their safe passage? Why did the stones remain cold and indifferent to his labor? One season, the rains were unusually fierce. The river became a churning monster of silt and uprooted trees. Cale worked frantically, shoring up the foundations, his muscles burning with fatigue. He wanted to be the bridge that stood, while others faltered. When the storm finally broke, leaving the valley quiet and dripping with moisture, Cale was exhausted. He climbed up to the monastery that sat on a high, windy plateau overlooking his work. He had heard of an elder there, a woman who lived in total silence, and he felt a desperate need to ask her why his service felt so empty. When he reached the courtyard, he found the elder sitting on a stone bench. She was not a woman of many words. In front of her sat an empty, weathered wooden bowl. It was carved from dark cedar, simple and unadorned. She was simply looking at the bowl, her hands resting motionless on her knees. Cale knelt before her, his breath still ragged from the climb. He poured out his heart. He spoke of the years spent under the arches, the freezing water that had splashed his face, the years of labor that seemed to go unnoticed by the hundreds who walked across his stones. He wanted to know how to make his work matter. Why it felt so invisible, even when he was the very foundation of the community's connection. The elder did not look at him at first. She picked up the wooden bowl. She turned it over in her hands, showing him that there was nothing inside. Then she stood up and walked to a small fountain. At the center of the courtyard, it was fed by a mountain spring. She held the bowl under the spout. As the water poured into it, the bowl became heavier. It began to overflow, the water spilling over the edges and wetting her robes. She didn't move to empty it. She simply stood there, allowing the water to rush through, filling and spilling, filling and spilling. Cale watched, confused. The elder finally looked at him. She didn't speak. She moved the bowl back to the bench and placed it down. She pointed to the bowl, then to the fountain, and then back to Cale's calloused, stone-dusted hands. She then picked up her own iron tool, a simple rod, and tapped the edge of the wooden bowl. It made a hollow, resonant sound that seemed to carry the weight of the water it had just held. She gestured for Cale to take the bowl. When he held it, he felt its lightness, its emptiness, and its quiet capacity. The elder spoke for the first time, her voice like the shifting of gravel. She asked him if the river cared about the name of the bridge that crossed it. Cale blinked, the question catching him in the chest. He thought of the river roaring through the gorge, indifferent, powerful, and ancient. It did not know his name. It did not ask for his dedication. It simply flowed. The elder then asked if the bridge was meant to hold the travelers, or if the bridge was meant to be the space where the crossing could happen. She gestured to the iron chisel he still carried in his belt. She asked if the chisel was defined by the stone it carved or by the hand that held it. Cale sat in the silence of the courtyard. The mist began to roll over the monastery walls, swallowing the view of the valley below. He looked at the wooden bowl. It was empty, yet it had held the water perfectly. It hadn't complained. It hadn't asked for the mountain spring. to acknowledge its service. It had simply been a vessel. And in that moment, Kale realized that he had spent his entire life trying to be the stone, solid and unmoving, while all along he was meant to be the space through which the lives of others could move. His resentment was the weight he had been adding to the arch, a weight that served no purpose other than to make the crossing feel heavy. He realized he had been working as if he were begging the world for permission to exist. He had been using his labor as a currency, trying to buy an identity that someone else had to sign off on. But the river beneath his bridge had never asked him to be its master. The travelers hadn't asked him to carry their burdens. They were just people moving through their own lives, as he was moving through his. The emptiness of the bowl was not a lack of value, it was the necessary condition for it to serve. As the dusk deepened, Kale sat with his hands resting on his knees. Mirroring the posture of the elder, he looked at the iron chisel in his belt. It was just a tool. It had no power of its own. It only had the purpose he gave it, and tonight, he realized he had been giving it the purpose of self-validation. He took a deep, slow breath, listening to the drip of the fountain. He felt a sudden, strange lightness in his chest, as if a layer of rock had been removed from his shoulders. He didn't know yet how to stop seeking the gaze of the travelers, but he understood, with a clarity that stung, that he had never needed it in the first place. The elder sat beside him, watching the mist dance in the courtyard. She knew that he was not yet fully free, for the habit of the mason's mind is deep, carved like a canyon over many years. But the first stone had been shifted. The bridge was still there, spanning the gorge. But for the first time in his life, Kale saw it, not as his own monument, but as a part of the landscape. He was not the builder who needed to be remembered. He was just a part of the path. This story, like the mist, settles quietly. It does not demand that you understand everything right now. It is here to remind you that your value is not a thing to be earned from the passing footsteps of the world. As you lie here tonight, consider the possibility that you have been trying to build a bridge out of your own need for approval, and that this is why your heart feels so heavy. You have been carrying the stone, the chisel, and the weight of every traveler's journey, all while forgetting that you are allowed to simply exist in the silence of the gorge. The river is still flowing, but you do not have to hold the water. You only have to witness the crossing. Let this truth rest in the space between your thoughts, for in the quiet, the stone begins to breathe. The story of the mason is not a call for you to stop caring about your work, or to suddenly turn away from the people who rely on your strength. It is a quiet invitation to examine the invisible load you have been carrying across the bridge of your own life. You might feel that your labor is the only thing keeping the world from drifting apart, as if you are the mortar between every stone. But notice how this belief creates a constant, low-level vibration of fear in your chest. You are perpetually looking over your shoulder to see if the travelers are satisfied, as if their approval were the very air you need to breathe. This is the moment where we begin to see the difference between being a steady support and being a desperate seeker of validation. The suffering you feel is rarely just the weight of the work itself. When you are tired, that is the natural rhythm of a body that has used its energy to build and to serve. That is a clean, honest fatigue that welcomes sleep. But the secondary ache, the one that keeps you awake when the house is still, is the weight of the story you have told yourself about why you are building. You have convinced yourself that your worth is a fragile thing, something that must be earned every single day by the volume of your service. When the world does not pause to offer a word of recognition, you feel as though your entire structure is failing. You begin to question your own existence because the audience is silent. This is the extra layer of pain that the mind insists on adding. Life brings enough difficulty on its own, but the mind is a master of manufacturing more, turning a simple task into a moral test of your value. If you look closely, you will see that you are not just carrying the stones of your life, you are also carrying the anxiety of whether those stones are beautiful enough, sturdy enough, or appreciated enough by those who walk over them. You are trying to be the stone, the bridge, and the traveler all at once. You are standing in the middle of the gorge, looking up at the sky, wondering why the wind does not applaud your dedication. The wisdom here is not about disappearing. It is about realizing that the space you occupy is inherently valuable, regardless of how many people pass through it. When you serve from a place of fear, your service is actually a request for a reward. You are handing over your peace in exchange for a nod of approval. But if you can learn to be the bridge, because it is simply your nature to be strong, then you become untouchable. The travelers can be indifferent, or they can be grateful, and your foundation remains entirely your own. You are no longer giving your power away because you are no longer asking for the world to confirm your identity. Think of your own life as the gorge. There are currents of change that move quickly, and there are travelers who arrive with heavy burdens. You have felt obligated to make sure every single one of them gets to the other side without difficulty. You have felt that if one person stumbles, it is a failure of your entire being. This is a burden that no human heart was meant to carry for a lifetime. The river of life does not require you to be its regulator. It only requires you to remain present and to be the solid ground that allows the crossing to occur. You are allowed to let the travelers be responsible for their own journeys. This is not coldness. It is the highest form of respect you can offer them. When you release the need to manage the crossing, you also release the need to be the judge of whether your work was good enough. You can let the stones be stones. You can let the bridge be a bridge. You can let the travelers walk their path without you needing to monitor their steps. In this shift, you will find that your own heart, which has been stretched to the breaking point, finally has space to expand. The mind will fight this, of course. It will tell you that if you stop worrying about how your service is received, you will stop mattering to the world. It will whisper that you are losing your relevance, that your life will become a hollow thing. But notice that this is just another form of the same old fear. It is the fear that without the external gaze of others, you have no shape, no substance, and no purpose. Yet, look at the moon. It does not wait for the tides to thank it for its light. It does not feel unappreciated because the mountains do not reach up to praise its glow. It simply exists, and its existence is enough. You have been trying to make your life into a monument, hoping that if you polish the stones of your reputation enough, you will finally feel secure. But monuments are heavy, and they are always vulnerable to the erosion of time and the indifference of the world. A bridge, however, is a part of the landscape. It is not trying to be a statue. It is trying to be a passage. When you stop trying to be a monument to your own goodness, you can finally relax into the life you are actually living. There is a profound, quiet strength in being willing to go unseen. It is the strength of the roots that hold the mountain together, even though they spend their entire lives buried in the dark. No one thanks the roots for the mountain's majesty. No one notices the work they do to hold the earth in place during the spring thaw. And yet, if the roots were to stop, the entire height of the peak would lose its integrity. You have been that foundation for so many for so long. The tragedy is not that you have worked hard. The tragedy is that you have forgotten that your value is not a result of your work. It is the reason you were able to work in the first place.
Wow.
You are not the bridge because you are useful. You are useful because you are the bridge. Notice the difference in the rhythm of your heart when you think of it this way. You do not have to force yourself to be kind. You do not have to force yourself to be patient. These are simply the qualities of the ground upon which you stand. You are not trying to change yourself into something new. You are simply clearing away the dust of doubt and the stones of self-imposed pressure so that your own nature can finally be seen by you. As you listen to the night air, let yourself settle into this realization. You are safe enough to be ordinary. You are safe enough to be a person who carries their own weight without needing the world to hold it for them. If the weight feels heavy tonight, it is only because you are still trying to hold the travelers too. Let them go. Let them walk across the span of your strength, and let them walk away. They are not yours to keep, and their destination is not your concern. Your concern is only the steadiness of your own feet and the quiet, solid ground of your own awareness.
There is no need to.
This tonight. You do not have to find the perfect way to stand or the perfect way to stop seeking approval. Just sit with the idea that you are already complete, even in your exhaustion, even in your feeling of being forgotten. You are entirely present. You are the space where your life is happening, and that space can never be lost, even if it is never praised. The silence of the night is not a void. It is a mirror that shows you that you are still here, and that you are enough. You have been running so hard to prove you are a good bridge, but the bridge does not need to be good. It only needs to be. As you continue to breathe into the stillness, feel how the tension in your hands begins to loosen. Just a fraction. You are not letting go of your kindness. You are letting go of the demand that your kindness be traded for peace. You are reclaiming your own heart, and for the first time in a long time, it is yours to hold, without a single traveler passing through it. This is where the foundation begins to mend. This is where the stones stop aching. This is where you finally begin to stand on your own. Now, we move from the story toward the quiet terrain of your own inner life. You have been carrying the weight of your service, the burden of your need for recognition, and the sharp edge of the mason's chisel for far too long. If it feels right to you, shift your position ever so slightly. Let your body find a shape that feels supportive, a posture where you do not need to hold yourself up. You can allow the mattress or the chair to become the solid earth beneath you. You do not need to be the bridge for anyone tonight. You are allowed to be the traveler who has finally reached a place to rest. Close your eyes if you would like, or simply soften your gaze and let the room blur into a gentle amber haze. Take a breath that starts low in your belly, let it expand into your ribs, and then, as you release it, feel your shoulders drop away from your ears. There is no need to make your breath perfect. There is no need to count, or to control, or to force a rhythm. Just let the air come and go like the quiet flow of the river far beneath the gorge. As you breathe, notice the thoughts that are currently occupying your mind. They might be small, nagging anxieties about tomorrow, or perhaps they are larger, heavier stories about what you have failed to provide for the people around you. Do not judge these thoughts. Do not try to sweep them away as if they were dust on the floor of a temple. Simply acknowledge them. Imagine that every worry, every fear of being unseen, and every impulse to prove your worth is a small, weathered stone. You have been carrying these stones in your pockets, a heavy, jagged collection that pulls your spirit toward the ground. You might feel the urge to organize these stones, to polish them, or to rearrange them so they hurt less. But tonight, we will try something different. Imagine that you are standing at the center of that wide, silent bridge we spoke of earlier. You are the foundation, strong and steady, but you are not the stones themselves. Take one of those worries, the one that feels the most urgent right now, and visualize it in your mind. See it as an object you have been holding tightly in your palm. Perhaps it is a grey pebble or a sharp chip of granite. Now, imagine that you are gently opening your hand. You are not throwing the stone away in anger. You are simply choosing to lay it down upon the bridge. You are giving the stone permission to just be a stone. You are letting it rest on the surface, beneath the open sky, where it no longer needs to be carried by your muscle and bone. Watch it as it settles there. Does the bridge collapse because you laid the stone down? Does the gorge cease to be a gorge? No, the structure remains. Your integrity remains. The bridge is perfectly capable of holding the weight of the stone, even if you are not the one holding it in your grip. If another thought arrives, if the mind starts to whisper that you must pick the stone back up, do not fight that impulse. Just notice it. That is the part of you that has been trying to protect you by staying busy, by staying useful, and by staying in control. You can thank that part of yourself for its service, and then with the same gentleness lay that worry down too. You are creating a space on the bridge where these concerns can exist without you becoming them. You are observing the stones rather than being crushed by them. This practice is not about becoming empty in a way that feels cold. It is about becoming spacious. When you lay down the need to be thanked, the need to be essential, and the need to be the only thing keeping the world upright, you are not losing your kindness. You are simply removing the friction that makes kindness feel like a chore. You are returning to the original purpose of your life, which is to be a steady presence, not a desperate performer. Take another breath and feel how much lighter your chest is without that stone. If your mind wanders, if you find yourself back in the habit of holding, do not be hard on yourself. The habit of being a mason is old, and it has deep roots in the granite of your history. Simply notice that you are holding again. And with a smile in your heart, open your hand. Let the stone slip away. Let it join the others on the surface of the bridge. Let them be silent, and let yourself be quiet. There is a strange, profound relief in this surrender. You are realizing that the world does not require you to hold it in your hand. The river will flow whether you are watching it or not. The travelers will cross, and they will continue on their way, and the bridge will continue to span the gorge, regardless of whether you are standing there, guarding it. You are safe enough to let go. You are safe enough to step back from the edge of the bridge and simply sit in the grass. As you continue to breathe, let your awareness settle into the feeling of the surface beneath you. Feel the texture of your bed, the weight of the blankets, and the way your body is being fully supported by the ground. You are not holding up the roof. You are not holding up the floor. You are being held. In this moment, you are the one who is allowed to be carried. You are the one who is allowed to receive, rather than always being the one who gives. Notice how your jaw feels. If there is a lingering tension there, let it release. Notice your eyebrows and let them soften. This tension is the shadow of your effort. It is the residue of all those moments when you felt you had to hold your face in a mask of steady, uncomplaining service. Tonight, that mask is set aside. You can let your features go slack. You can let your expression be whatever it needs to be, because there is no one here to see it, and there is no one here who requires you to be anything other than exactly what you are in this moment. If you feel a sense of guilt or a sudden, sharp fear that you are neglecting your duties, hold that feeling with the same kindness you would offer a tired child. It is only the mason's mind, afraid of what will happen if the bridge is left unattended. Whisper to that part of yourself that it is night, that the river is slow, and that the travelers have found their own way. Everything that needs to happen is already happening. You do not need to be the architect of the universe for the next 8 hours. You only need to be the person who breathes, who softens, and who trusts the darkness. Stay with this sensation of laying down the weight for a few moments more. There is no urgency. The practice is not about achieving a state of complete silence, but about noticing the moments when you choose not to grasp. Every time you open your hand, you are changing the entire history of your struggle. You are teaching your nervous system that it is safe to be without the weight. You are teaching your heart that it is worthy of rest, even when there is no one left to cross the bridge. The silence of the room is now your companion. It is not an empty silence. It is a full, rich, and accommodating space that welcomes you exactly as you are. You do not have to move. You do not have to achieve a certain level of peace. You only have to exist, and to let the stones of your worry remain where you have placed them, on the sturdy, ancient, and patient stone of the span. You are doing enough simply by being here, in the dark, and choosing to let your hands be open. Years later, the mason Kale lived in a small, isolated hut near a mountain pass. He was no longer known as the builder of grand bridges. He was simply an old man who tended to a dry fountain in an abandoned temple courtyard. His fingers were stiff from years of labor, and his back held the curve of the arches he had once raised. He had stopped seeking the gaze of travelers. He had stopped measuring his worth by the footfalls of those who crossed his path. Yet the old habits of the mind are not so easily erased. They are like deep grooves in a stone, worn down by the constant flow of water over many winters. One afternoon, a young architect arrived at the temple. He was vibrant, restless, and driven by a fierce desire to build something that would last forever. He had heard tales of Kale, the man who had once built the perfect bridge across the gorge, and he wanted to know the secret of immortality. The young man carried a satchel filled with blueprints. He spread them out on the flagstones of the courtyard, his hands trembling with ambition. He explained his designs with fervor, showing the intricate carvings, the soaring supports, and the way he intended to mark his name. In every corner of the stonework, he wanted the world to remember him. He wanted to be certain that when he was gone, his work would stand as proof that he had mattered. Kale watched him with a quiet expression. He picked up a small, weathered lantern that sat by the fountain. It was a simple object of iron and glass, darkened by soot and age. Kale held it out to the young man. He asked him to carry it into the dark hallway of the temple and light it. The architect, confused by the request, took the lantern and walked into the shadows. He searched for a place to hang it. He wanted to put it on a pedestal so that the light would be seen by everyone who entered. He spent a long time trying to find the perfect spot, shifting the lantern back and forth, trying to make sure it would cast the most magnificent glow. When the young man finally returned to the courtyard, The temple hall remained largely dark. The lantern had been placed so high and tucked away that its light did not reach the corners of the space. Kale took the lantern back. He did not say a word. He walked to the very center of the floor, right on the path where the pilgrims would walk, and he set the lantern down on the dusty stones. The light immediately illuminated the uneven ground, the cracks in the wall, and the simple beauty of the worn floor. It didn't cast a grand golden aura. It simply allowed the traveler to see where they were stepping. Kale looked at the architect and asked a simple question. He asked if the light was meant to be admired by those who looked at it, or if it was meant to serve the one who needed to see the path. The architect fell silent. He looked at his beautiful, intricate blueprints, then at the humble lantern sitting in the dirt. He realized that in his search for immortality, he had been trying to build a pedestal for his own ego, rather than creating a way for others to walk safely. He had been so focused on the monument he wanted to create that he had forgotten the simple, honest purpose of his craft. A struggle ignited within the young man. He felt the sting of failure. He felt the weight of his own pride, which had seemed so righteous only moments before. He wanted to argue. He wanted to defend his designs. But as he looked at the old mason, he saw no judgment. He saw only the patient, unmoving strength of the stone. For the first time, the architect did not try to hide his struggle. He sat down on the ground, his blueprints forgotten, and he admitted aloud that he was afraid. He was afraid that if he stopped building for glory, he would simply vanish. He was afraid that he was nothing more than the shadow cast by his own accomplishments. Kale didn't offer a platitude. He didn't tell him that his work was wonderful, or that he would be remembered. He handed him a small brush and a bucket of water. He asked him to wash the stones of the fountain, not to make them look new, but simply to clean away the dust so the water could flow clearly. It was a task of service that had no audience. There was no prestige in it. There was no one to watch, no one to applaud, and no one to write his name in the annals of history for washing stone. The architect hesitated. His hand hovered over the water. The instinct to resist was strong. It felt beneath him. It felt like a waste of his great talent. But as he looked at the lantern still glowing softly on the floor, he took a breath. He chose to set his pride down. Just for a moment, he dipped the brush into the water and began to scrub. He did not do it with a flourish. He did it with a steady, repetitive motion. He felt the cold water on his skin. He heard the splash against the basin. He focused entirely on the weight of the brush, the texture of the stone, and the rhythm of his own heartbeat. Something shifted in him. It was not a sudden explosion of enlightenment. It was a subtle, almost imperceptible softening. The urgency to prove himself, which had been a constant, burning heat in his chest, began to cool. He realized that the stone did not care if it was being washed by a famous architect or a nameless pilgrim. It only felt the touch of the water. He was not disappearing. He was simply arriving. He was finally present in the very life he had been so busy trying to outrun. When the sun began to set, casting long, orange light across the courtyard, the young man stopped. He looked at his hands, raw and clean. He looked at the fountain, which now reflected the sky with a clarity he had never seen before. He had not built a bridge that day. He had not designed a temple. He had done nothing that would last for centuries. And yet, for the first time in his memory, he did not feel the need to justify his day. He did not feel that he had wasted his time. He felt quiet. Kale walked over and stood beside him. He did not offer praise. He simply stood in the silence, watching the swallows fly home to the rafters. The architect, who had come searching for the secret of immortality, had found something much smaller and much more precious. He had found the capacity to be ordinary. He had found that the world was vast and beautiful, and that he was allowed to be a small part of it, without needing to be the center. This is the deeper teaching. The architect was not suddenly cured of his ego, and the mason did not give him a lecture on the vanity of the world. The lesson was in the washing of the stone. It was in the choosing to be present, rather than choosing to be seen. You have been, like the architect, carrying your blueprints of what you think your life should be, always reaching for the pedestal, always terrified that you will be forgotten. But you are not meant to be a monument. You are meant to be a light that sits on the path, helping others see their own way, without ever needing to be thanked for the illumination. Tonight, you can set your blueprints aside. You can let the drawings of your ideal life and the fear of what you might lose drift into the darkness. You do not need to be a grand architect to be whole. You do not need to build a legacy that echoes through time. You are invited to be exactly where you are, doing exactly what is in front of you, with a heart that has finally stopped looking for an audience. As the night deepens, let your breath slow to the rhythm of the swallows in the rafters. Let the need to be great dissolve into the quiet reality of being enough. There is a deep, abiding peace in the surrender of the ego, and tonight that peace is available to you, simply because you are here, breathing and allowing the world to exist without your constant management. The fountain is clear, the water is flowing, the stones are resting. You can rest too. The mechanism that keeps your heart in a state of perpetual struggle is not the bridge itself. It is the way your mind insists on standing in the middle of the span, pacing back and forth with a lantern, trying to ensure that every stone remains perfectly placed. You have convinced yourself that if you stop this vigilance, if you stop the internal rehearsal of your duties, everything will crumble. This is the mechanism of control. It is a protective reflex, born from a time when you perhaps felt that your safety depended entirely on your ability to predict the movements of those around you. But in your life today, this reflex has become a habit that keeps you from ever truly resting. Consider the energy you spend replaying a conversation from 3 days ago, analyzing the tone of a person who crossed your path, or worrying about a meeting that is still weeks away. The mind calls this preparation. It tells you that by simulating these events, you are somehow fortifying your foundations, but you are not fortifying anything. You are only wearing down the stone. You are using your internal resources to build a future that has not yet arrived, or to rewrite a past that has already moved on. This is the secondary layer of pain. It is the friction of the mind refusing to let the river flow beneath it. When an unexpected difficulty arises, that is the first kind of pain. It is the natural consequence of being alive, of interacting with a world that is always in motion. You might feel a sting of disappointment, a flash of fatigue, or the sharp pull of being misunderstood. This is unavoidable. It is as certain as the rain that falls into the gorge. But then, the mind begins its work. It asks, why is this happening to me? What does this mean about my character? How can I ensure this never happens again? It takes that initial sting and tries to build a permanent monument out of it. It turns a moment of difficulty into an identity of failure. This secondary layer is where the suffering lives. It is the weight of your own judgment. You take the pain of a single passing event and you stretch it out making it the entire narrative of your life. You begin to define your worth by the things you could not control, as if your value as a person were determined by the storms you faced. If you could simply acknowledge the first pain, the sting, the loss, or the exhaustion, without the follow-up interrogation from your mind, you would find that you are capable of bearing it. You have the strength of the bridge. You have the depth of the gorge. You have the capacity to remain steady while the currents move, provided you do not try to stop the currents themselves. The fear of uncertainty is another heavy stone you have been carrying. In your pocket, you want a map of the coming days. You want to know that the bridge will be safe, that the travelers will be kind, and that your service will be rewarded with a sense of lasting security. But the river does not promise where it will flow tomorrow. The gorge does not promise that the rocks will not shift. By demanding a guarantee from a world that is fundamentally uncertain, you are ensuring your own state of chronic, low-level anxiety. You are essentially trying to build a bridge out of glass, and then you are suffering because you are terrified it might break. Realize that your need for approval is an attempt to create a sense of internal sturdiness by sourcing it from external footsteps. When you feel lonely or unseen, you try to build a bridge back toward the people you fear might leave you. You offer more of yourself. You provide more service. You try to be the perfect support, hoping that your utility will make you essential to their survival. But this only creates a cycle of dependency. You are not building a connection. You are building a debt. When you stop trying to fix the self through the approval of others, you might feel a sudden, terrifying sense of exposure. It feels like stepping off the bridge and finding that you are still floating even without the stones. This is the doorway to freedom. The Buddhist path does not promise that the world will become predictable. It does not promise that your life will become a monument of ease. It promises something much more profound. It promises that you can develop a different relationship with the ground you stand upon. You can learn to be the presence that notices the pain without becoming the pain. You can learn to be the one who observes the anxiety without becoming the one who acts on it. You are the space where these thoughts are happening. You are the stillness that exists before the next thought arises. This change does not come from a grand decision. It comes from 1,000 tiny moments of choosing not to feed the second layer of suffering. It happens when you feel the sting of a criticism, and instead of spiraling into self-blame, you simply notice the feeling in your chest. Name it as a passing sensation and allow it to breathe. It happens when you find yourself rehearsing a future argument, and instead of continuing the scene, you pause, feel the weight of the moment, and recognize that you are currently sitting in a safe room, breathing, and that the argument is only an echo in your head. You are learning to treat your own thoughts as travelers on the span. Some are heavy and loud, some are quick and light, some are dark and storm-worn, but none of them are you. You are the bridge they pass over. You are the one who remains long after the thought has faded into the mist. When you stop trying to control the thoughts, when you stop trying to argue with them or fix them, they lose their power to define you. They lose their ability to make you feel as though you are falling apart. This is the foundation of genuine inner peace. It is not a state of euphoria where the world becomes perfect. It is the state of being unshakable in the midst of your own humanity. It is knowing that you can be tired, you can be uncertain, and you can be imperfect, and none of that makes you any less of a pillar. You are not a structure that is failing because you have cracks in your stones. You are a living being whose value is not dependent on the integrity of your image. You have been trying to protect an image that was never real, and tonight you are being invited to let that protection go. Think of the way you have treated yourself during times of trouble. Have you been a compassionate companion, or have you been a stern, watchful judge? Most of us are the latter. We believe that if we are hard enough on ourselves, we will somehow prevent future errors. We think that by applying the pressure of shame, we are keeping our internal bridge from buckling. But shame is not a support. Shame is a corrosive, a slow, eating agent that wears away the very foundation of your spirit. When you are the one who is suffering, you need a witness, not a prosecutor. You need the quiet presence of someone who understands that it is hard to be human. You are that witness now. You are finally sitting down beside yourself, without a notebook to track your mistakes, and without a hammer to break your spirit. You are observing the way you move through your life, and you are noticing that it is okay to be exactly where you are. The struggles you are facing are not proof that you are broken. They are proof that you are still engaged with the world, that you are still trying to bridge the gap between where you are and what you understand. This is the noble effort of a heart that refuses to become cynical. Even if you feel that you have made a mess of things, even if you feel that your bridge is full of loose stones and gaps, you are still here. You are still breathing. The river is still flowing beneath you. Nothing has truly been lost, because the essence of who you are, that quiet, observing awareness, is still intact. It has not been scratched by your failures. It has not been dented by your doubts. It is the one thing in your life that does not need to be repaired. It is the one thing in your life that is already and will always be whole. So, let the secondary pain go. Let the need to argue with your past dissolve. You are moving into a state of deep, structural integration. You are not trying to be a different person. You are simply allowing the person you already are to emerge from, beneath the layers of self-inflicted pressure. You are the bridge. Yes, but you are a bridge that finally understands it does not have to be the river, the sky, or the travelers too. You are the steady ground, and tonight, for the first time in a long time, you can feel how deep your roots truly go. You are held, you are solid, and you are finally ready to stop holding yourself. This practice does not stay confined to the silence of a mountain temple or the stillness of a courtyard. It must travel with you into the velocity of your own days. When you find yourself in the middle of a busy afternoon, perhaps waiting for a reply to a text that never arrives, you might feel that familiar, sharp pull in your chest. It is the urgent desire to reach out, to secure the connection, to force the pattern of your social world, to remain predictable and clear. Your mind will try to weave a narrative of rejection or neglect, trying to make sense of the silence by adding layer upon layer of interpretation. In that moment, you have a choice. You can follow the thread of your anxiety, building a frantic bridge of explanations until you are knotted in a tangle of your own making. Or you can pause. You can take one single, conscious breath and remember the solid weight of the stone span. You can feel the gravity of your own body, and you can deliberately choose not to pull on the thread of your worry. You can let the silence remain a silence, rather than turning it into a story of your own unworthiness. This is the application of the Mason's wisdom. It is the act of noticing the desire to control and choosing, instead, to inhabit the present moment with an open hand. It does not mean you stop caring about your connections. It means you stop turning that care into a weapon against your own peace of mind. Think of those long, restless nights when you lie in the dark, replaying a mistake you made months ago. The mind treats this like an urgent structural repair, convinced that if it just thinks through the scene one more time, it will find the crack it missed. It is a form of mental labor that feels productive, but it is actually just exhausting the architect. The mistake is already woven into the history of your life. It cannot be undone, and it cannot be recarved. When you catch yourself doing this, notice the physical sensation of the struggle. See how your jaw tightens and your muscles contract as you try to fix the past. Simply whisper to yourself that the work is finished for tonight. You are not required to audit your own history while your body is trying to rest. This same softness can be brought to the times you feel you are falling behind in the race of life. It is easy to look at the work of others and feel that your own span is thin, uneven, or lacking in polish. You might feel the pressure to speed up, to add more, to make your life look more like the successful images you see in the world around you. This is the fear of being seen as unfinished. But consider the bridge. It did not try to match its arch to the neighbor's. It worked with the stones it had, in the rhythm that the gorge allowed. You are allowed to have a life that is slower, quieter, and less uniform than the ones you see in the public eye. You are not a product to be graded. You are a person in the process of becoming, even in your relationships, where the urge to control is perhaps the strongest. This wisdom has a place. We often try to force our loved ones into the patterns we think are best for them, fearing that if they move differently, we will be left alone. We try to anchor their choices to our own comfort. But true connection is not about holding someone in a fixed position. It is about letting them move freely and letting yourself move alongside them, even when the path feels unpredictable. When you feel the instinct to manipulate or demand, pause. Ask yourself if you are trying to serve the relationship, or if you are simply trying to ease your own fear of the unknown. Giving someone the space to be themselves is the highest form of respect, and it is the only way to build a bridge that can actually survive the shifting winds of life. The guilt you feel when you allow yourself to rest is another weight that needs to be laid aside. We live in a culture that teaches us that our worth is equal to our output, as if we were machines designed to never stop the construction. When you finally stop and lie down, the mind may whisper that you are failing, that you should be doing more, or that you have not earned this quiet. This is a false pattern, a design imposed by a world that does not know the value of the heart. Rest is not a reward for work. Rest is the natural state of a being that has lived through a day and needs to return to the source. You do not need to earn your right to exist by proving how much you can endure. When you find yourself smiling at the world while feeling heavy and overwhelmed inside, you are practicing a form of endurance that is very costly. You are keeping up the appearance of a tight, unbroken span, while the foundation underneath is straining. It is okay to be honest with yourself about the weight you are carrying. You do not have to announce your struggle to the world if you are not ready, but you must acknowledge it to yourself. Admitting that you are tired is the first step in setting the chisel down. It is the beginning of a life that is not based on the perfection of the monument, but on the integrity of the heart. Each of these small moments, the ones where you choose not to obey the panic, is a practice session for your soul. You are building a new capacity for presence. You are learning that you can survive the uncertainty of a text, the sting of a memory, or the pressure of a deadline without losing your center. The goal is not to become indifferent to these things. The goal is to move through them with a different kind of strength. You are not becoming less human. You are becoming more aware of your own humanity, and that awareness is the most durable stone you will ever possess. There is a simple, quiet discipline in choosing not to check your phone for reassurance when you are feeling lonely. There is a profound act of self-care in deciding that you will not replay a conversation just because your mind is demanding it. These small refusals are the stones that mend the fraying edges of your spirit. They are the ways you reclaim your autonomy from the grip of habit. You are the master of your own attention, and every time you choose to return to the present, you are strengthening the support of your own peace. This does not mean your life will suddenly become easy. It means you will become more capable of sitting in the center of your life, regardless of how the wind is blowing. When the structure shakes, you will know how to steady it without panic. When the path shifts, you will know how to adjust without losing your heart. You will walk through your world not as a person trying to protect a fragile monument, but as a person who knows the value of the foundation and the beauty of the work. You are becoming a mason who finally trusts the stone. In this light, every annoyance of your day, every frustration, and every moment of doubt becomes an opportunity to practice. You are not trying to avoid these things. You are using them to learn the rhythm of the release. When you feel yourself becoming tight, you remember the iron chisel, and you imagine the sensation of letting it go. You feel your shoulders drop, your jaw soften, and your breath expand. This is the rhythm of your own awakening. It is the pulse of a life that is, finally, truly, being lived from the inside out. As you prepare to move into the final stage of your evening, let these thoughts settle. You do not need to memorize these instructions. They are already becoming a part of the way you see the world. Your life is not a disaster waiting to happen. Your life is a work in progress that is constantly being held, shaped, and supported by the very nature of existence. You are safe enough to step away from the construction for the night. You are safe enough to let the world continue without your direct supervision. The dawn will come, and the path will be waiting. But for now, there is only the quiet, there is only the breath, and there is only the space where you finally get to be someone who rests. The lantern of your attention is dimming now, and the shadows of the room are deepening, wrapping you in a comfort that has nothing to do with the work you do or the bridges you maintain. You have spent your time here, walking through the architecture of your own heart, noticing the places where the mortar of effort has grown thin, and realizing that the weight you were carrying was never yours to hold alone. All those stones of responsibility, those heavy, jagged blocks of expectation you stacked so high, can be left on the floor of the valley now. The bridge you provide for the world will still stand, not because you are guarding it with your tired eyes, but because the foundation itself is sound. You are the ground, and the ground does not need to worry about the footsteps that pass over it. Feel how your limbs are becoming heavy, as if the granite of the bridge is finally turning into the soft, yielding earth of the bank. Your breath is no longer a tool you are using to manage your anxiety. It is simply the rise and fall of the tide against the shore. There is no need for you to be vigilant. There is no need for you to search for cracks in the dark or to worry about the integrity of your structures. Everything is already held. The mountain does not ask the trees to stand straighter. The river does not ask the water to flow faster. And you, in this moment, do not need to ask yourself to be anything other than exactly who you are, letting go of the mason's iron, letting the dust settle on your calloused skin, and allowing the night to claim the labor of your day. Your mind may try to wander back to the blueprints, catching hold of a stray thought about tomorrow or a lingering regret from the past. But you know now that these are just travelers on the path, and you are not the path itself. You are the space where the path exists. When a thought comes, let it move across your awareness like a cloud, crossing the face of a mountain, neither staying nor leaving a mark. You do not have to give it a home. You do not have to feed it your attention. You can let the lantern stay on the ground, casting its simple, steady light, and you can close your eyes, trusting that the world will continue its turning without your constant intervention. The silence here is not empty. It is the vast, accommodating stillness of the gorge before the first dawn. It is a space where the stones can breathe and where the water can find its own level. You have been building so hard, trying to justify your existence through the strength of your arches, but your true value was always in the space you created for others to cross. You are the passage, not the product. You are the grace of the bridge, not the coldness of the stone. Let that realization settle into your chest, a gentle warmth that replaces the icy tension of your long, weary vigil. You are allowed to be still. You are allowed to be forgotten. You are allowed to be, for a little while, entirely off duty. Imagine the lantern light fading, not because the oil is gone, but because the sun is beginning to touch the distant peaks. The need for light is ending because you are moving into a realm where you no longer need to see where you are going. You are simply arriving. The tension in your jaw is washing away, carried off by the invisible current of your breath. The tightness in your shoulders is dissolving into the softness of the bed. You are a mason who has finally put down the chisel, a builder who has finally learned that the most important construction is the one that allows the builder to find rest. There is no more work to be done. The stones will wait. The river will flow. The people will find their own ways across the gorge. You have done your part, and the bridge is strong. And tonight, the bridge is asleep. Let your heart beat slow to the rhythm of the mountain, a deep, steady percussion that echoes in the stone, and the moss, and the cool, damp air of the night. You are not a separate thing, struggling to maintain its place in the world. You are a part of the landscape, woven into the fabric of the gorge, existing with the same effortless inevitability as the wind that moves through the pines. There is a profound, quiet beauty in this surrender. You are letting go of the persona that had to be strong, the image that had to be perfect, and the narrative that had to be managed. You are sliding into the truth of your own existence, a truth that is quiet, simple, and entirely sufficient. As you drift, feel the last remnants of the days, demands fading like footprints in the sand, washed clean by the slow, rhythmic pulse of the earth. You are safe. You are grounded. You are home. If you find yourself waking in the middle of the night, if the old habits of the mason try to wake your mind to the work of the bridge, do not fight. Do not scold yourself. Simply notice the urge, feel it in your hands, and open them. Remember the lantern on the ground. Remember that you are not the one holding the world together. The world is holding you. Take that deep, slow breath again, and let the darkness be a soft, cool blanket that holds you close. The stones do not need to be polished. They only need to be. And you, in the deepest part of your being, are the bridge that finally, beautifully, knows how to rest. What if the quiet you have been building toward was never a place to reach, but the very silence that held you while you were busy, trying to construct the way?